I, 29, female, married my husband James, 31, 6 months ago in what started as a beautiful ceremony but has since unraveled into a nightmare that's exposed years of family secrets and financial manipulation. I met James 3 years ago through mutual friends, and our relationship progressed naturally and lovingly. He works in finance, comes from an affluent family, and always seemed responsible with money. His father passed away when he was young, and his mother moved back to her home country in Europe after remarrying, so I had never met her before our wedding day. Throughout our relationship, James spoke about his mother with a mix of reverence and distance. He said she was a strong woman who raised him alone for years before remarrying and moving abroad when he was in college. They maintained regular contact through video calls, and she always seemed supportive of our relationship, sending thoughtful gifts and asking about my life and career as an architectural designer. When we got engaged, she immediately offered to help with wedding expenses and sent a generous check that covered almost half our costs. The first red flag appeared during our wedding planning when James insisted on an extravagant ceremony that seemed beyond our means. When I expressed concern about the budget, he assured me that between his salary, my income, and his mother's contribution, we could afford it. He was adamant about impressing his mother's side of the family, many of whom would be traveling from Europe. I compromised because I wanted him to have the reunion he dreamed of, and honestly, I was excited to finally meet my mother-in-law. The wedding day started beautifully. James's mother, Eleanor, arrived 2 days before and was gracious and warm, though something felt off about her intense focus on me. During our first meeting, she kept commenting on how special I must be and how grateful they were to have found someone like me. I attributed her odd behavior to jet lag and the emotional nature of finally seeing her son get married. The ceremony went smoothly, but things took a strange turn during the reception. Eleanor requested to give a toast, which turned into an hour-long speech that made everyone increasingly uncomfortable. She spent the first 20 minutes praising me as the brave, ideal wife who would carry on her legacy of devotion. She called me sacrificial and understanding repeatedly, saying I was exactly what James needed, and how relieved she was to pass the torch. James seemed mortified but kept whispering that his mother was just emotional and probably had too much champagne. When I asked him later that night what she meant about me being brave and sacrificial, he claimed she was referring to her own challenges as a single mother and how she never felt worthy of his father's wealthy family. He said she probably saw herself in me and was projecting her insecurities. I accepted this explanation, wanting to focus on our honeymoon and future together. But Eleanor's behavior became more bizarre as the wedding weekend progressed. She pulled me aside multiple times to give me advice about managing family resources and keeping private matters private. She slipped me the business card of her financial advisor and insisted I call him immediately after returning from our honeymoon. When she hugged me goodbye at the airport, she whispered, "Remember, you're stronger than you know. You'll need to be." The truth began unraveling 2 weeks ago when James's uncle, his late father's brother, contacted me after seeing some unusual transactions in the family investment accounts he helps manage. He discovered that Eleanor had been making massive regular payments to cover James's gambling debts for the past 8 years. My husband, the successful finance professional I thought I knew, had lost millions of dollars through online gambling and high-stakes poker games. The salary he contributed to our household was actually monthly payments from his mother, who had been using her second husband's wealth to keep James afloat. Every bonus he claimed to earn was Eleanor covering another massive loss. Even my engagement ring was bought with money she sent to prevent a loan shark from revealing James's debts to me. Eleanor's wedding speech wasn't about her past struggles or projecting her insecurities. She was trying to warn me in the only way she could without causing a scene. She assumed I knew about James's gambling and was brave for marrying him anyway. Her comments about carrying on her legacy and passing the torch meant she expected me to take over handling his debts and keeping the family secret. I confronted James last night with the evidence his uncle provided. Instead of showing remorse, he became defensive and revealed that Eleanor had recently cut him off, saying she'd done her part. And now that he was married, it was my responsibility to stand by him through his struggles as his wife. He actually expected me to use my savings and income to cover his gambling habit because that's what family does. I'm staying at my sister's house while I figure out my next steps. James keeps switching between begging me to come home and threatening to tell everyone I abandoned him, just like his mother did. Eleanor has been calling non-stop, alternating between apologizing for not being more direct and lecturing me about my wifely duties. I haven't even begun to process the level of deception from both of them. I've scheduled an emergency appointment with a divorce attorney for next week. I know I need to protect myself, but I'm struggling with guilt and confusion. How did I miss such massive red flags? Why did I ignore my instincts about Eleanor's strange behavior? Should I have pushed harder when things didn't add up about our finances? Edit. Thank you for all the supportive comments and advice. I'm overwhelmed, but reading your responses helps me feel less crazy for being blindsided by this. I'll post an update when I have more information and have taken some concrete steps forward. Update 1. The past few days have been a whirlwind of revelations and difficult conversations, exposing just how deep this deception runs. I want to start by thanking everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice helped me stay strong when James and Eleanor launched their full manipulation campaign. Looking back, I can't believe how much I overlooked, how much I excused, and how long I believed the version of reality they presented to me. But now the truth is out, and while it's painful, it's also freeing. After my initial post, I met with James's uncle Richard, who provided even more details about the financial situation. What he told me was beyond anything I could have imagined. The extent of James's gambling addiction is staggering. Over the past 8 years, Eleanor has covered roughly $3.2 million in gambling debts. The so-called salary payments she sent him each month averaged around $15,000, but there were frequent emergency transfers ranging from $50,000 to $200,000 when James got in too deep with bookies or loan sharks. That's not just a little financial mismanagement, that's a full-blown crisis that's been going on for almost a decade. Richard also shared something even more unsettling. James's father, his own brother, had a gambling problem too, one that the family had kept secret for years. When he died, everyone believed it was a heart attack, but Richard recently found evidence suggesting it might have actually been suicide due to gambling debts. Eleanor knew about this history, but instead of getting James help, she decided to manage his addiction by keeping him financially afloat, thinking she could control the problem by throwing money at it. In reality, she was just enabling him, keeping him from facing any consequences and letting the cycle continue. The most devastating revelation came when Richard showed me documentation of transactions from our joint accounts. Remember how James insisted on handling all our wedding expenses because he was good with money? Turns out he gambled away not only his mother's contribution, but also the monetary wedding gifts we received. Every single dollar that was supposed to go towards starting our future together was lost at a casino, a sports betting site, or in some high-stakes game he thought he could win. And it didn't stop there. James even took out a secret loan using our new house as collateral. That was the part that really hit me. Our home, our supposed fresh start, was put at risk without me even knowing, and when the loan payments became unmanageable, Eleanor swooped in and paid it off last month as her wedding gift to us. That wasn't generosity, that was her quietly cleaning up yet another one of James's messes, all while letting me believe everything was fine. As I started putting the pieces together, I also learned more about Eleanor's motivation for her bizarre wedding speech. That moment had been haunting me ever since it happened. Her standing up in front of everyone and making it clear that I was now responsible for taking care of James. At the time, I thought it was just a weird, overbearing mother-in-law moment. Now I know it was calculated. Eleanor had recently discovered that James had started borrowing money from his stepsister, her current husband's daughter, by telling her I had expensive shopping habits and medical debts. Basically, when Eleanor began cutting back on the money she gave him, James didn't look for a real solution. He just found another person to manipulate. But that was Eleanor's breaking point. She realized she couldn't keep funding him forever without risking her own marriage. So her wedding speech wasn't just an awkward public declaration, it was a setup. She was trying to force him to confess everything to me by making it clear in front of everyone that I was now in charge of him. The depth of their collective delusion became even clearer during a video call Eleanor requested yesterday. She spent 2 hours explaining how she had protected James all these years by covering his debts and managing his addiction. In her mind, she wasn't enabling him, she was preserving the family's reputation and giving him time to outgrow his problem. She genuinely believed that now that he was married, I would naturally take over that role because, as she put it, a wife's duty is to protect her husband's weaknesses. That was the moment I realized there was no getting through to her. She saw this as a handoff, not a problem. In her mind, she had done her part, and now it was my turn to take my role in keeping James afloat. When I told her I was considering divorce, she broke down and revealed even more family secrets. She admitted that James's gambling addiction started in college, right after he found letters suggesting that his father's death wasn't accidental. Instead of getting him therapy, Eleanor began sending him larger and larger allowances to keep him stable and, more importantly, to keep him from investigating further. She even admitted that part of her motivation for moving abroad was to put some distance between herself and the truth about her first husband's death. Hearing all of this, I wasn't sure if I was more angry or just exhausted. None of this excused what James had done to me, but it explained a lot. He had been raised in a family where problems were covered up, where money was a solution instead of real accountability, where uncomfortable truths were ignored in favor of maintaining an illusion of stability. That's why he thought he could lie to me indefinitely. That's why he assumed I would just accept my responsibility and keep cleaning up his messes. James's behavior has become more erratic in the past couple of days. He showed up at my office yesterday causing a huge scene about how I was abandoning him just like everyone else. My colleagues had to call security when he refused to leave. Later I found out he's been telling family members that I'm leaving him because I have a shopping addiction and that I gambled away our savings. A projection so ridiculous it would almost be funny if it weren't so pathetic. But here's the thing, I'm not alone in this. The support from my family and friends has been incredible. My sister helped me move essential documents and valuables from our house to a safe location. My best friend, who works in addiction counseling, contacted me with resources for families affected by gambling addiction. Not because I need to help James, but because I needed to understand how deep the manipulation goes. My parents have stepped up in ways I never expected, offering both emotional and practical support, including helping me find a new apartment since it's clear I can't go back to that house. I've already taken major steps to protect myself financially. I've frozen my credit, separated our bank accounts, documented everything I've learned about the situation. The divorce attorney I consulted was genuinely appalled by the level of financial deception and is working to build a case that could lead to an annulment rather than a divorce. If successful, that would mean I walk away without any legal ties to his debt, which at this point is the best possible outcome. The hardest part in all of this has been accepting that my entire marriage was built on lies. James didn't just hide this gambling. He built an entire false persona as a successful, responsible professional. He let me believe I was marrying someone stable, someone with goals, someone I could build a life with. Eleanor didn't just enable him. She actively participated in deceiving him, thinking she was doing both of us a favor by orchestrating a smooth handover of her enabling role. I'll update again when there are significant developments, and right now my focus is on securing my finances, finding a new place to live, and processing this betrayal with my therapist. Thank you again for all the support and advice. Knowing that so many people see through the manipulation and recognize that I'm not crazy for wanting out has helped me stay strong despite the constant guilt trips and pressure from James and Eleanor. I may not have seen the truth sooner, but I see it now, and I refuse to be part of this toxic cycle anymore. Update 2. The situation has escalated in ways I never imagined, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like I have some clarity. Since my last update, more people have come forward with information that only deepens the deception I had unknowingly walked into. Every new revelation has been another piece of a puzzle I didn't even know existed. And the picture it's forming is one of years of calculated lies, manipulation, and financial recklessness. James's cousin reached out unexpectedly, and what he told me was chilling. Just 2 days before our wedding, he witnessed James gambling away $50,000 to an underground poker game. When he confronted him about it, James laughed it off, calling it pre-wedding jitters, and assuring his cousin that Eleanor would handle it like she always did. That phrase, Eleanor will handle it, seems to be the underlying theme of James's entire life. His cousin admitted he felt guilty for not warning me, but explained that Eleanor had convinced the entire family that I already knew about James's gambling problem and had agreed to help manage it after the wedding. To them, I was just stepping into the role Eleanor had played for years. Then something even more unexpected happened. Eleanor's current husband reached out to me. I wasn't sure what to expect, but what he told me only made everything more disturbing. He had recently discovered that Eleanor had been stealing money from their joint accounts to fund James's gambling. She had set up elaborate schemes to hide the transfers, moving money between different accounts to make it harder to trace. When her husband confronted her about it 3 months ago, she didn't deny it. Instead, she justified it by saying she was protecting both families' reputations. According to her, if James's addiction became public knowledge, it wouldn't just ruin him, it would destroy multiple families, social standing, and business relationships. She genuinely believed that covering for him, no matter how reckless he became, was the only option. As if that wasn't enough, James's former college roommate reached out to me with even more damning information. He had been sitting on years of online gambling records and decided it was finally time for me to know the truth. One of the biggest lies I had been told was that James's gambling addiction started after he found out about his father's death, possibly being a suicide. But that was never true. James had been gambling compulsively since high school. The moment Eleanor caught him in college, he panicked and fabricated the story about how learning the truth about his father's death had sent him into a spiral. Eleanor, racked with guilt over the idea that her late husband's gambling genes had been passed down, responded by doing exactly what James hoped she would do. She started giving him money to keep him stable. From that point on, he learned that he never had to take responsibility for his actions. Another major lie came to light soon after. James's entire career was a fabrication. He doesn't actually work in finance. He lost that job 2 years ago due to suspicious activities involving clients' accounts, something I never even knew about. Eleanor had been creating fake pay stubs and making direct deposits into his account to keep up the illusion that he was employed. All those business trips he had taken, they weren't for work. They were gambling trips to Atlantic City and Las Vegas, funded entirely by Eleanor to keep him away from local bookies who might have exposed him. The financial damage he has caused is far worse than I initially realized. His Uncle Richard, who has been one of the few honest people in this entire situation, has found evidence of at least 15 different high-interest loans James took out in the past year alone. Eleanor had managed to pay off most of them before they spiraled out of control, but 3 are still active, and here's the worst part. James used our marital home as collateral without my knowledge or consent. That house, which I thought was part of the foundation of our new life together, is entangled in a financial disaster I didn't sign up for. The total amount owed is staggering, and with Eleanor finally cutting him off, he's getting desperate. Desperate enough, apparently, to start rewriting history. James is now telling anyone who will listen that I'm the one with the gambling problem. He's even gone so far as to create fake screenshots of gambling transactions under my name, which, thankfully, are easy to disprove since I've never been to any of the casinos or online platforms he mentions. But the fact that he thought this would work, that he genuinely believed he could twist reality enough to make people question me instead of him, shows just how deep his deception runs. Eleanor, for her part, has completely shifted tactics. After that emotional video call where she admitted everything, she's now claiming she was confused and misunderstood the situation. She's telling family members that the only reason she ever sent James money was because I was blackmailing him, threatening to expose some unnamed family secret unless he paid me off. It's the kind of ridiculous, flailing lie that shouldn't hold up under any scrutiny, but considering how long she's been able to manipulate people, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them actually believe her. Her husband, however, isn't falling for it. He told me that this is just her pattern. She enables destructive behavior, helps cover it up, and then when all this blows up, she rewrites history and makes herself look like a victim. The one silver lining in all of this is that James's extended family is finally seeing the truth. Many of them have suspected something was wrong for years but felt powerless to speak up because of Eleanor's grip on the family narrative. Now that the floodgates have opened, they've started sharing years of documentation that will help my case for an annulment, including evidence that James deliberately concealed his addiction from me during our engagement. Right now, I'm staying with my parents after James's behavior became too aggressive. At first, I had been staying at my sister's house, but after he showed up multiple times, I realized I needed to be somewhere more secure. Yesterday, he followed me to work, except this time he wasn't alone. He brought Eleanor with him. Together they caused such a scene in the lobby that security had to escort them out. It was humiliating, but also deeply unsettling. It's one thing for James to spiral, but for Eleanor to be right there with him, still trying to manipulate me into fixing things, proves that she truly sees me as nothing more than her replacement in this twisted dynamic. Thankfully, my company has been incredibly understanding. After what happened yesterday, they arranged for me to work remotely until things settle down. Having that space to breathe away from the constant stress of looking over my shoulder has made a huge difference. One of the best decisions I've made was to start therapy, and through that I've been connected with a support group for spouses of gambling addicts. Hearing other people's experiences has been eye-opening. The deception, the financial ruin, the way families cover for the addict instead of holding them accountable. It's a pattern that plays out far more often than I have realized. And while that's horrifying in its own way, it's also comforting to know that I'm not alone, that I couldn't have known what I wasn't meant to see, and that none of this was ever my fault. Tomorrow I have another meeting with my lawyer to discuss all the new evidence, and Richard has offered to help me navigate the financial mess that James has left behind. There's still a long road ahead, but for the first time I feel like I have control over my own life again. The fog of manipulation is lifting, and I can finally see just how much danger I was in. Despite everything, I know one thing for sure. I'm not looking back. Update 3. It's been 3 weeks since my world turned upside down. I'm finally ready to share what will likely be my first update. So much has happened that it's hard to know where to begin, but I'll try to cover the most significant developments and share some unexpected positive changes in my life. The biggest breakthrough came when Eleanor's husband followed through on his earlier contact. He lived in the US last week with extensive documentation of Eleanor's financial manipulations and James's gambling activities. Turns out he's been building a case for his own wife for months, meticulously tracking how Eleanor drained their accounts to enable James. He's a retired forensic accountant, and his records are extremely detailed. These documents reveal that Eleanor didn't just enable James's gambling, she actively helped him hide losses and create false paper trails. She had a whole system of offshore accounts set up to funnel money to him while maintaining the appearance of a successful finance professional. The sophisticated nature of this deception explains why I never noticed anything amiss in our shared finances. But the most shocking revelation wasn't about money. Eleanor's husband discovered that James had tried to get help for his addiction several times over the years, but Eleanor repeatedly sabotaged his attempts at recovery. She cancelled therapy appointments, paid off counselors to stop treatment, and even hired someone to pose as a treatment center representative to tell James he was cured after just 2 sessions. Her obsession with maintaining the family image literally prevented her from getting the help he desperately needed. James finally hit rock bottom last week when Eleanor's husband froze all her accounts, cutting off his last source of funds. He showed up at my parents' house at 3 a.m., clearly intoxicated, demanding money and claiming he had evidence that would ruin me. My father called the police, and when they arrived, they found illegal gambling receipts and unlicensed firearms in his car. He's currently in custody, and while I feel terrible about his situation, it might be the wake-up call he needs. Eleanor's reaction to James's arrest was illuminating. Instead of finally acknowledging the damage her enabling caused, she tried to blame me for not standing by my husband in his time of need. She actually told family members that if I had just agreed to take over managing James's addiction like she planned, none of this would have happened. Her complete disconnect from reality helped me understand why James never developed healthy coping mechanisms. The family dynamics have shifted dramatically. James's relatives, freed from Eleanor's manipulation, have been incredibly supportive. His cousins helped me move by taking belongings from our house, and his Uncle Richard has become like a protective father figure, ensuring I have sources and support during this transition. Perhaps the most positive development is my unexpected connection with James's stepsister Sophia. She reached out after discovering how Eleanor had manipulated her into giving James money. We met for coffee last weekend and spent hours sharing stories about Eleanor's manipulation tactics. Sophia has become a wonderful friend and ally, proving that sometimes beautiful relationships can emerge from terrible situations. My professional life has actually improved all the chaos. The architectural firm I work for was so impressed with how I handled the situation at the office that they've offered me a promotion and the opportunity to lead our new residential division. The partner specifically mentioned my grace under pressure and problem-solving skills as qualities they value. It's ironic that this crisis has accelerated my career in ways I never expected. I'm also proud to share that I've started volunteering with a gambling addiction awareness organization, sharing my story to help others recognize signs of addiction and enabling behavior. The experience has been incredibly healing, and I'm working with them to develop resources specifically for families dealing with multi-generational gambling issues. Eleanor's husband has filed for divorce and offered to help me pursue an annulment rather than a divorce. Since the marriage was predicted on such massive deception, he's become an unexpected source of wisdom, helping me understand that Eleanor's enabling behavior was its own form of addiction. He introduced me to support groups for people affected by enablers, which has been eye-opening. James is still in custody but has finally agreed to enter a real rehabilitation program. His Uncle Richard will oversee his treatment this time, ensuring Eleanor can't interfere. While I wish him healing and recovery, I'm maintaining my boundaries and proceeding with the annulment. Some of his relatives have suggested I give him another chance once he's sober, but I know that chapter of my life is closed. I've moved into my own apartment, adopted a rescue cat, who's currently curled up next to me as I type this, and started taking art classes, something I've always wanted to do, but James discouraged because it was wasteful. Each day brings more clarity and about how controlled and diminished I felt in that relationship, and each day I feel stronger, more like myself. Eleanor's final attempt at contact came yesterday through a lengthy email claiming she had saved me from making the same mistakes she did by forcing the truth to come out before I had children with James. She still doesn't understand that her decades of enabling caused more damage than James's gambling ever could. I didn't respond to the email, but I did forward it to her husband's lawyer as he requested. To everyone who supported me through this journey, thank you. Your comments helped me stay strong when I doubted myself, and your advice guided me towards protecting myself when I felt lost. Special thanks to those who shared their own stories of surviving addiction and enabling behavior. You helped me understand that my situation wasn't unique and that there's no shame in being deceived by experts at deception. I'm sure there will be more challenges ahead as the legal proceedings continue, but I'm no longer afraid. I've learned that being brave doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to enable someone else's addiction. It means having the courage to walk away when staying would destroy you both. The ideal wife isn't someone who silently shoulders her husband's burdens, but someone who loves herself enough to demand truth and respect in her marriage. For anyone else discovering their partner's hidden addiction or dealing with manipulative in-laws, please know you're not alone. There are resources and support systems available, and it's never too late to choose yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you've been deceived and start over. Stay tuned for more stories from Our Girl Relationships.